San Bonani no Kenny Safilanje. Hawagiti San Bonani. San Bonani. San Bonani. Safilanje.
Hello, ila masa bagatani. Hello, ila masa bagatani. Hello, ila masa bagatani. Hello, hello, ila masa. Hello, ila bagatani. Hello, ila masa bagatani. Eloi, Eloi, Eloi.
Thank you very much to the University of the Western Cape Creative Arts Choir, which, by the way, is the alma mater of the head of Infrastructure South Africa, Mametsi Masemola. Thank you to the SA Navy Band as well. Dumelang, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 5th Sustainable Infrastructure Development Symposium. My name is Clement Manyatela, and I'm really honored this morning to be the MC for this plenary session. I'd like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure, Dean McPherson, also the Deputy Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure, Sihle Zikalala, and the Mayor of Cape Town, Jordan Hill-Lewis. We have other special guests with us this morning. The Minister, Chief Ndlaluhlaza Ndwandwe from Eswatini. We have Minister Neo Machato Mutiani from Lesotho. We have Minister Daniel Gare in Zimbabwe. Minister Govindranath Guinness from Mauritius. We have Minister Atamelang from Botswana. Minister Alice Wahome from Kenya. We've got Mayor Paul Alex Banda from Lilongwe in Malawi. The acting mayor Womberaishe Nende from Harare, Zimbabwe, Mayor Warabile Mutlaleng from Gaborone, Botswana, Mayor Johannes Shimbilinga from Wallis Bay in Namibia, Mayor Sakarai Unona from Windhoek in Namibia. We have the Deputy Governor, James Njoroge Muchiri from the city of Nairobi in Kenya, Mayor Roja Mbasa Ndine from Douala, Cameroon, Mayor Ronald Nsulubuga Malimwezo from Kampala in Uganda, and the Deputy Mayor João Gustavo Mugwambe from Maputo in Zimbabwe. Those are some of the special guests we have this morning. Thank you for being here with us. We also have ministers, deputy ministers, premiers, MECs from various provinces as well. Ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. Now, over the years, the Sustainable Infrastructure Development Symposium has played quite a critical role in strengthening the national infrastructure pipeline, in mobilizing funding and addressing systematic delivery challenges. And that's precisely why we have the critical role players we have in this room. Role players in the infrastructure investment space here with us. We've got infrastructure funding and financing institutions, industry experts, and of course, government representatives. And we have all of you here today because we need everyone to be galvanized around the key goal of investing in public infrastructure projects for the growth and benefit of this country, of this continent, and its people. We have all of you here because we need to discuss the strategies and share insights into the best practices for infrastructure development and investment. And there are a lot of opportunities for infrastructure investment, not only here in South Africa, but the continent at large, which is why regional cooperation and integration is so critical as envisaged by the program Infrastructure Development in Africa. So as you will see today, government is doing its part in committing money towards a pipeline of projects. But the private sector also needs to come in as well with investments. And that's why we have this symposium, because we want to explore partnerships between the public and private sectors. We want to explore investment opportunities in infrastructure, to talk about the regulatory policy reforms, the innovative funding models for infrastructure. And those conversations are taking place today. Some of them already started yesterday. Distinguished guests, we will announce today the top 8 infrastructure priorities for project preparation for the 2026-2027 financial year. This is a pipeline of projects to receive project prep and support from Infrastructure South Africa. We will also launch today the 3rd edition book, which is a collection of all infrastructure projects going into procurement in the 2026-2027 financial year. This will be available on the SIDSSA and SIDSSA websites. Now, without any further ado, please help me welcome Dean McPherson, the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure, to welcome us. Can we please give him a hand?
Thank you very much, Clement. I think that you are now firmly part of the furniture of SIDSSA. I think this is your third, okay. Ministers and representatives from across the African continent, South African ministers, the Deputy Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure, Mr. SIDSSA, Deputy Ministers from South Africa, members of the Executive Council, the Deputy Speaker of the KwaZulu-Natal Legislature, Ms. Mabatu Tembe, the Executive Mayor of the City of Cape Town, Alderman Jordan Hill-Lewis, other mayors and municipal officials present, our Head of Infrastructure South Africa, Ms. Mametse Masemola, the Director General of the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure, Mr. Sifiso Mdekane, the Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Public Works and Infrastructure, Ms. Carol Perry, members of the Portfolio Committee on Public Works and Infrastructure, all of our wonderful sponsors, representatives of development finance institutions and multilateral organizations, and private sector partners, good morning. Good morning. It is a privilege to welcome you all to the opening plenary of the Sustainable Infrastructure Development Symposium, South Africa 2026. To our guests who have traveled from across the African continent, we sincerely thank you for joining us. To the ministers, mayors, deputy ministers, and officials who have traveled from other parts of South Africa, you are most welcome. All of your presence this morning reflects the important work before us. SIDSSA is South Africa's second most important economic summit now after the South African Investment Conference. It is where government, investors, financiers, project sponsors, and technical experts come together around a common purpose, turning infrastructure plans into functional infrastructure. This year, our particular focus is around local infrastructure delivery. It is at the local level that people experience infrastructure most directly. Water from a household tap, roads connecting communities to opportunity, electricity supporting local businesses, and sanitation that protects public health. If infrastructure delivery does not succeed locally, our national plans cannot succeed. Ladies and gentlemen, when I became the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure just over 2 years ago, I set a clear objective to turn this portfolio into an economic delivery unit to help turn South Africa into a construction site. And that progress can now be measured. South Africa has 81 strategic integrated projects comprising 263 individual projects with an estimated value of 2 trillion rand. This includes high-value, high-impact infrastructure investments led by both the public and private sector. Over the past 18 months, 37 projects worth approximately 70 billion rand have now been completed. 82 projects worth 502 billion rand are currently in construction, and a further 54 projects worth 206 billion are in documentation and procurement. Infrastructure South Africa has now processed more than 500 regulatory facilitation cases and resolved nearly 90% of them, helping projects move through critical approval and permitting processes. I think they deserve a round of applause. These are important achievements. But the lesson over the last 2 years is clear. South Africa does not suffer from a shortage of infrastructure ideas. Too many projects fail because they're not adequately prepared. Feasibility work is incomplete, funding models are uncertain, and regulatory approvals are delayed, as well as projects not being packaged in a form that investors and financiers can understand or support. That's why we launched South Africa's first of its kind project preparation bid window initiative. Through our 600 million rand commitment to project delivery support, Infrastructure South Africa is now helping public institutions transform promising concepts into bankable, investment-ready projects. The first bid window received 277 submissions with an estimated capital value of 322 billion. Infrastructure South Africa is now providing preparation support to more than 26 projects with an estimated value of nearly 150 billion rand. 15 supported projects have already completed their preparatory work, and projects selected through bid window 2 represent a further potential capital investment of nearly 60 billion rand. Bid window 3 opened in July of this year, creating another opportunity for national and provincial departments, public entities, and municipalities to bring forward high-value projects requiring preparation support. And so the strength of this program lies in its bespoke approach. SIDSSA can provide technical feasibility work, financial modeling, legal and commercial structuring, environmental and regulatory studies, governance support, and transactional advice according to the needs of each project. Prepared projects are then taken directly to potential funders. Earlier this month, SIDSSA at our Development Partners Forum presented 4 live opportunities in housing, aviation, bulk water, and energy to local and international development finance institutions and multilateral development banks. Together, just these 4 examples required more than 53 billion rand in debt financing. At the South African Investment Conference this year, SIDSSA secured a pledge of more than $1 billion for a large-scale bioethanol production facility. This is the model we are building, ladies and gentlemen. Prepare our projects properly, take them to the market, and support them towards financial close and construction. Later this morning, the head of Infrastructure South Africa, Ms. Mametsima Samola, and I will announce the priority infrastructure projects selected through bid window 2 and release the next edition of the Infrastructure South African Construction Book, setting out projects expected to enter into procurement during the next 12 to 18 months. The proportion of planned tenders and subsequently advertised tenders has improved from approximately 42% to 58% just in the last year. That is immense progress, but it's not good enough for us. Quarterly performance reporting will identify which projects are advancing, which are falling behind, and where intervention is needed. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we are applying the same discipline to local infrastructure. Over the past 18 months, Infrastructure South Africa has committed more than 131 million rand to support local government infrastructure. This includes millions of rands to support municipalities in both Gauteng and the Eastern Cape, which have secured a combined investment value of 7.3 billion rand. And I like to use this example, and I know the mayor of Matjhabeng is still very excited about this. In Matjhabeng, we made 1.8 million rand available to prepare a non-revenue water program, which helped unlock 800 million rand from the Development Bank of Southern Africa for their projects. Through the Presidential Adopt a Municipality pilot program, Infrastructure South Africa is supporting municipalities across 4 provinces. And that program is preparing projects that seek to unlock another 7 billion rand in water, sanitation, energy, and waste management. These figures demonstrate the multiplier effect of quality, prepared project preparation. A relatively small investment in technical preparation unlocks hundreds of millions and billions of rands in infrastructure investment. Progress is also being made across the wider public works infrastructure portfolio. And according to the Construction Industry Development Board, we are now seeing more and more contractors being removed from the registry with consequence management. These achievements show the dedication in which we are moving our institutions towards stronger, better prepared, and greater accountability for a relentless focus on service delivery. The approval to formalize Infrastructure South Africa as a public entity is central to the next phase of this work. We are building a permanent institution capable of serving as the central point for major infrastructure projects across our country while maintaining a credible national pipeline, coordinating approvals, and mobilizing finance and support implementation. Ladies and gentlemen, South Africa has committed more than 1 trillion rand to public infrastructure over the next 3 years. Our responsibility, therefore, is then to translate that commitment into properly prepared projects, credible procurement processes, and active construction sites to deliver functional infrastructure. Our infrastructure program must be judged not by the value of its announcements, but by what is financed, built, and ultimately delivered to communities. SIDSSA takes us from stronger preparation to faster implementation, and from national ambition to visible local delivery. We have strengthened our pipeline, we have expanded project preparation support, and we have brought credible projects together with financiers. We must now convert that progress into financial close, construction, and infrastructure. Ladies and gentlemen, as we gather here in the city of Cape Town, it is fitting that we now hear from our host city and reflect on the important role that municipalities must play in shaping South Africa's infrastructure future. It is therefore my great honor to invite the Executive Mayor of Cape Town, Alderman Jordan Hill-Lewis, to stand to formally open the plenary and welcome us to his beautiful city. Won't you please rise as he comes to the stage? Thank you very much, Alderman.
Thank you very much, everyone. Good morning. Molweni. Welkom hier. It's lovely to see you all. Honourable Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure, Minister Dean McPherson, Honourable Ministers from the South African Government and Deputy Ministers from the South African Government here present, also various Premiers and MECs, and then we have Ministers and Mayors and Senior Government Representatives from across Southern Africa and elsewhere on the continent as well. We also have representatives of Infrastructure South Africa and the Investment and Development Finance and financial institutions, investors, developers, infrastructure specialists, engineering firms. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Good morning. Wamkilikile. Welcome. It is my distinct privilege and honor to formally open this 5th Sustainable Infrastructure Development Symposium South Africa. I know that there was a change in the schedule, but I hear that we will still be hearing from the President via a virtual address later today, and I know that we all look forward to hearing from him. I really want to thank you, Minister, and the team from Infrastructure South Africa, under the leadership of the President and the stewardship of this Minister, for bringing us together again for this really important symposium and conference. The fact that we are now in the 5th iteration of SIDSSA reflects a very important growing recognition. I think it is on all of our lips across the country that infrastructure must take its rightful place at the heart of the economic growth agenda, at the heart of the functioning of our towns and cities across the country, and at the heart of the quality of life of our people. This year's theme, Shaping the Future of Municipal Infrastructure, is obviously something that is very close to my heart, and I think is very appropriate. For many years, much of the national infrastructure conversation has focused on big national projects, and understandably so, most of that focus has been on major energy projects. There's been a few on national transport corridors, on ports, and other projects of national significance. Those projects, of course, remain significant, and one hopes that they will roll out with the necessary speed and urgency. But the success of our infrastructure agenda is ultimately experienced much closer to where people actually live and work. It's reflected in whether households can rely on their water supply, whether wastewater infrastructure has sufficient capacity to connect more and more households to the grid and offer more and more people a basic level of dignity where they live, whether electricity networks can support new businesses connecting to them so that we can grow the economy and create jobs, whether roads and stormwater systems can cope with changing conditions, and whether public transport can connect people to opportunity. This is why the shift of the discussion in our country towards municipal infrastructure matters so much, and why I regard it as so important. Local government is where people actually experience the state most directly. Municipal infrastructure is therefore an economic issue, a governance issue, an investment issue, and a deep quality of life and dignity issue. We can build the South Africa that we all want and that we know is possible, but we have to actually focus on getting down and building it. And that starts at a municipal level, and it starts with municipal infrastructure. If we want South Africa to attract investment, create jobs, grow its economy, and move many more people out of poverty, we have to invest in the places, the towns, the cities, where that economy actually operates and those people and interact with that infrastructure. And that is at our cities. South Africa, as we know, is rapidly urbanizing. All of the cities that you come from across the continent are also rapidly urbanizing. Our cities are growing incredibly quickly. Population growth, urbanization, and semigration are bringing massive pressure to our urban systems. Cape Town is experiencing this very clearly, but I know that we are certainly not alone or unique in this. I see other mayors in the room who are experiencing just as rapid population growth in their cities. In fact, sometimes I think the basic job description of a metro mayor today is managing the pressure of rapid urbanization. Now, that growth brings with it much opportunity, but it also creates enormous pressure. If infrastructure investment doesn't keep pace with that growth and that economic activity, existing systems cannot support it. Never mind the size of the city that will exist in 10 years or 20 years' time. So if we are struggling to keep up now, we will be further behind by the time that larger city arrives, as it will. This is why infrastructure investment has to be forward-looking. Unfortunately, so much of the conversation in South Africa is occupied with just trying to catch up with the existing pressure. But in fact, we should be looking forward to 20 years, 30 years, to the kinds of cities that we want to live in then and start building them now. We cannot just be building to address yesterday's backlog. We have to build for the demand and the size of the city that we know is coming. We are taking this challenge seriously here. We've just recorded more than 12.3 billion rand in capital expenditure this last financial year. And I know that compared to some of the national numbers that Infrastructure South Africa works with and that you work with, Minister, 12.3 billion doesn't seem all that much. But let me tell you that 12.3 billion is an all-time South African record for infrastructure investments by a city government in any one year. So we have broken those records this last year. But let me be very frank. While that is a wonderful achievement of which we are very proud, Cape Town does not regard our infrastructure program as evidence that we have solved all of the challenges that we have. We have not. Even at those record levels of investment, we are only just keeping pace with the rapid growth of our city that we have now, while beginning to prepare for the future demand that we see coming. That should give us some pause for thought and some perspective nationally. If a city is investing at record levels, but still regards this investment as the minimum required, we need to ask what level of infrastructure investment South Africa's cities and towns across the country will require to prepare for the years ahead. I have spent a lot of time studying our infrastructure budget and, frankly, the infrastructure budget of every major city in South Africa. And I have developed what I think is a helpful rule of thumb. I think that every major metro should be investing between 10 and 15 billion rand every single year in order to keep up with the pressure and start to prepare for the size of the city that is coming. And from that rule of thumb, we have developed a budget rule that we have implemented here in Cape Town called our infrastructure budget rule. It is not law. Future governments may change it if they want to, but we hope that they do not. Because if we stick to this budget rule of thumb, we can actually make sure that our budgets cater for the future. And that rule is this, that once you have achieved the minimum required level of investment, somewhere between 10 and 15 billion rand a year, that budget should grow every year by at least the combination of inflation and population growth in your city. So it should grow by the combination of inflation plus population growth in your city. And population growth in the cities is much higher than national population growth. So it has to be a higher number. The other key thing that I've found working on this very closely these last few years is that the key determinant of success in infrastructure is project preparation. It does not help simply to have big budgets. There is lots of money available for infrastructure investment in South Africa. Lots of wonderful DFIs that are here and banks that are here, I'm sure. To those who have lent to us, let me say thank you very much. And please sharpen your pencils for next time. But the availability of capital is not the issue. The issue is the preparation of projects. You have to set incredibly clear goals. Pick some projects, build a team, and get going with very strict deadlines. The next thing I've learned, as I'm sure that all of us have learned, is that cities simply cannot fund all of this required infrastructure on our own. We do need DFIs, we do need support from the banking sector, we do need private sector finance in the form of PPPs. And this is why the work of Infrastructure South Africa is so important in supporting infrastructure projects and planning, project preparation, financing, and delivery. South Africa needs to become much better at identifying where public resources should be used, where private capital can fill the gap, and how to combine those two to deliver infrastructure at much greater scale. And as we all know, a construction project on paper is not infrastructure. It becomes infrastructure when it is properly planned, financed, procured, constructed, maintained, so importantly, and operated well. The distance between announcing a project and delivering a project is where the real work of infrastructure happens. And this is where leadership becomes so critical. Here we have tried to take a long-term view of infrastructure by investing heavily in the maintenance of our existing systems, trying to address historical backlogs, and expanding capacity for future growth. I'm so glad that many of you had an opportunity to visit a really exciting and cutting-edge project called the Cape Flats Aquifer Recharge Project. And I hope that many of you went on that site visit. This is such an important part of Cape Town's approach to water security for the future, following the drought scare that we had several years ago. It forms part of our broader effort to diversify our water sources and reduce our dependence on rainfall. It is a fascinating project, as you will have seen, drilling more than 1 kilometer deep into the aquifer below our feet and extracting fresh water for the city's future use, and then recharging that aquifer with recycled water from the city after use. This is the kind of municipal infrastructure we need to think about for the future. It requires state-of-the-art technical expertise, long-term planning, environmental management, and significant capital investment. One of the things I'm most proud of these last few years is how we have invested in our sewer network to bring down the number of sewer blockages and spills in our city, to improve the dignity of residents who should never have to live with daily sewer blockages and overflows as a normal reality. And we've achieved more than 33% reduction through that investment program. But all of these projects obviously have a primary benefit, and they also have a wider economic benefit. When a city builds, it creates demand for engineers, construction companies, manufacturers, suppliers, and skilled workers. I remember so clearly when we started our pipe replacement and upgrade project to address those sewer issues. Pipe replacement construction companies in the city said that they could not meet our demand and that it would take them time to scale up. And they have done that and answered that call admirably. They have scaled up. They are now delivering 400% more than they delivered 4 years ago. And of course, that is funded by our investment. And what is great is that they have come back to tell us how many more engineers they have hired, how many more construction staff they have hired in order to scale up to meet that demand. That is why we say that infrastructure is also the bedrock of a growing city economy. When making investment decisions, businesses consider whether there will be reliable electricity and water, whether transport networks operate, whether the city can support a growing economy. This is why we've said, in essence, when cities work, people work. Infrastructure sends an important signal about the future prospects of a city that go beyond just the improvements in service and dignity, as important as those are. This is why infrastructure must be understood as fundamental to our country's economic strategy, not simply as a collection of line items on a budget. We also have to be honest about the scale of the challenge. South Africa cannot expect our cities to accommodate the rapid growth that they are undergoing right now, while infrastructure investment remains below what those changes require. I am glad that we are having a national conversation about the necessary minimum appropriate level of infrastructure investment for growing cities. We've got to think differently about how infrastructure maintenance is funded as well, and what the true cost is of foregoing this maintenance. Replacing pipes before they fail can prevent much larger expenses than when they do fail. Future-ready infrastructure therefore requires life cycle management. We should consider not only what it costs to build an asset, but what it will cost to properly maintain that asset for years to come. There is obviously, it goes without saying, a very close relationship between infrastructure and municipal finances. The fact is that cities need sustainable revenue models if they are expected to sustain massive infrastructure programs. They must protect the money that they raise from their utility services. The National Treasury's Utility Reform Program, I'm sure the Treasury are in the room, is strongly supported here in Cape Town. And the essential rule or focus of that program is that money raised from water services must be protected for water. Money raised from the electricity service must be protected for reinvestment into the electricity grid, and so on. So if that's to happen, we've got to explore new ways of financing much more infrastructure, including well-structured partnerships with the private sector and DFIs. So, all of this together tells us that the delivery of public infrastructure at 2x or 3x or 4x the current rate in South Africa is going to require a massive national effort. It's going to require larger budgets, more access to financing, better governance, transparent procurement, strong leadership, sound financial management, much more technical capacity, and reliable data, all to come together into a national effort to build the kind of country we want. I believe this is one of the most important conversations we can currently have in South Africa, and I'm so glad that it is happening here over the next few days. We should use this symposium to move from broad agreement, every person here agrees that we need much more infrastructure, to move from that towards practical agreement about what needs to change. How do we get the kind of strong leadership that makes sure that projects go from concept to construction? How do we get more projects prepared? How do we reduce delays, improve technical capacity, and attract private capital? These are the questions that no sphere of government can answer on our own. National government has an essential role to play. So does provincial, and so do our cities and towns. So does the private sector, bringing capital, expertise, and technology that can help structure projects and provide innovative international financing. So does academia and professional institutions by bringing research and expertise. We need all parts of this system to work together behind this national goal of much higher levels of infrastructure investment. This is why it's appropriate that SIDSSA is a national, provincial, and local platform that crowds in all of those players. Cape Town is very proud to host the symposium, and we are pleased to share some of our experience. Not that we have got everything right, by no means, but because we have learned some valuable lessons about what it takes to deliver infrastructure at scale. And at the same time, we come here to learn from other municipalities and spheres of government. The objective should be to raise all of our games collectively. South Africa's future economic performance will depend heavily on whether we can raise our game, whether we can build cities and towns capable of dealing with the pressure we face. We can either choose to wait for infrastructure pressure to become a crisis, as unfortunately it is in so many parts of our country, or we can plan ahead, invest consistently, and build capacity so that we can keep ahead of that incredible pressure. In other words, we can either choose to succumb to that pressure or we can choose success. That is the work before us. Cape Town is determined to play our part. We will continue to ramp up our investment in infrastructure and share what we learn. We also recognize that our success is connected to the success of other South African cities and municipalities. We are all involved in this project of building the South Africa that we want. Let us take hope and encouragement from our discussions here today. On behalf of the City of Cape Town, I want to welcome you all to this 5th Sustainable Infrastructure Development Symposium South Africa. I hope that the discussions over these next few days take us from the conference hall to construction sites, where infrastructure really happens. And so the next time I see you, I hope it is in a hard hat. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Minister Dean McPherson and Mayor Jordan Hill-Lewis. And thank you for reasserting that infrastructure should be at the heart of the quality of life for our people, because quality infrastructure directly drives their daily well-being, doesn't it? By providing essential systems, whether it's clean water, reliable energy, or efficient transport. And we'll hear more about this in the panel discussion that is coming up next. Ladies and gentlemen, a reminder once again that President Cyril Ramaphosa will be joining us at 12 for a keynote address. A reminder as well to please keep our phones on silent mode to avoid interrupting the session. Our first panel discussion this morning focuses on reimagining municipal trading services and building financially sustainable cities through infrastructure investment. The moderator for this session is communications strategist, Mr. Lupumlo Ngayisa. So please help me welcome him on stage. As we welcome him on stage, please let's clap as we see off the Mayor of Cape Town, Jordan Hill-Lewis.
Thank you, Clement. honorable ministers, mayors, MECs, MMCs, strategic and very important stakeholders present. I stand on existing protocols. As Clement has said, my name is Lupumlo Ngayesa. It is my immense pleasure to be a part of this life-transforming initiative that's been in existence for 5 years. And we sincerely hope that the gains that it has made since inception shall continue to grow exponentially. And I say this with the confidence owing to how it has grown right from when it started to where it is now. There's definitely no doubt that those gains are beginning to yield results, and growth therefore is inevitable. There can be no meaningful discussion about economic future of our countries that does not begin with the condition of our municipalities. For it is in the municipalities where the ambitions of the state must ultimately assume practical meaning. It is there, in the municipalities, that policy must become a road, that a budget must become water in a household, that an energy strategy must become electricity for a factory, and an investment commitment must become economic activity and physical jobs. This is why, once again, ladies and gentlemen, I'm super excited about the panel that I'm going to be leading. For cooperative governance and local governance remain, in many respects, the engine room of government and the cold face of service delivery. I say this also from personal experience, as I've had the rare privilege of serving within that portfolio in the Gauteng provincial government, and I am therefore very much alive and aware of the mammoth task that that portfolio holds. The question we are asking, ladies and gentlemen and distinguished guests, is how do we transform municipal services from obligations that municipalities must finance into economic infrastructure that helps us to grow the cities we preside over? How do water, electricity, sanitation, and waste services enable investment? How do we strengthen municipal revenues? How do we modernize infrastructure? How do we rebuild technical capacity and mobilize capital? Because a municipality, as we all know, that cannot provide reliable services will struggle to sustain a growing economy, as the mayor and the minister had alluded. Our discussion this morning, therefore, ladies and gentlemen, is appropriately titled, for as Clement had mentioned, we are here seeking ways, meaningful ways, of transforming municipal services into engines of economic growth. To lead us into this conversation, we have the privilege of hearing from two distinguished ministers from two very strategic and important countries. And these ministers, their responsibilities place them at the center of the local government challenge. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and privilege to invite the Honorable Velinkosi Fiki Hlabisa, who is the Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs for the Republic of South Africa. Minister, as you make your way, I have a request for you. President Thabo Mbeki addressed the leadership panel yesterday morning, and he says there is a document that he's not too sure as to whether you received it, but there's a document, and he said, I must impress upon you that he believes it's very important that you read this said document. And shortly, once you have immersed yourselves with the workings of the document, he would like for you to have a conversation with him. And Minister would agree with me. He said, I must actually say it here so that it is recorded that there's a document coming your way and that you need to respond. And I take it when you return next year, you will then share with everybody the contents of the said document. Over to you, Minister, and welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Program Director, Ministers and Deputy Ministers, distinguished guests from South Africa and across the world. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to rise on the protocol that has been observed. Good morning. Program Director, in relation to the message from His Excellency, I will gladly welcome and accept the document and surely go through it and share it accordingly and immediately arrange an appointment with His Excellency. It is a privilege to participate in this important discussion, particularly in the presence of government leaders, investors, infrastructure specialists, and industry partners from South Africa and beyond. The diversity of this audience is important because the challenge before us cannot be addressed by the government alone. Our discussion on reimagining municipal trading services and building financially sustainable cities through infrastructure speaks directly to cooperation between government and all key players. It calls on us to look beyond the traditional leadership, the traditional understanding of municipal water, electricity, sanitation, waste management, and related services as simple functions that municipalities must perform. We must understand these services as economic foundations upon which our cities and towns are built. When services are constantly reliable, businesses can operate with greater certainty. Industries can expand, investors can make long-term decisions, and communities participate more meaningfully in the economy. Reimagining municipal trading services is about building the economic future of our municipalities. Municipalities are operating in an increasingly complex environment. They must respond to urbanization, population growth, infrastructure backlog, climate change, and technological change, as well as the rising expectations from citizens, businesses, while also confronting financial and institutional pressures. Our concern, therefore, is not simply to build more infrastructure. It is to build better infrastructure, finance it responsibly, maintain it effectively, and ensure that it generates long-term public and economic value. In South Africa, the review of the white paper on local government is particularly significant in this regard. The review provides an opportunity to rethink the architecture and functioning of local government in response to present realities and future demands. The reform process recognizes that municipal sustainability cannot be achieved through financial interventions alone. We need capable institutions, professional administrators, appropriate governance arrangements, stronger accountability, better infrastructure management, and financing models suited to different municipal realities. The review provides an opportunity to bring together questions of municipal finance, institutional capacity, infrastructure, spatial development, service delivery, and economic growth. It challenges us to create a local government system capable of attracting and managing investment while remaining accountable to the communities it serves. The review also recognizes that South Africa does not have a single municipal reality. Our metropolitan municipalities, secondary cities, immediate cities, small towns, and the rural municipalities have different economic bases, infrastructure requirement, and institutional capacities. Our approach, therefore, be differentiated, but our ambition must be universal. Every municipality must work. One of the most important shifts we need to make is to move from viewing infrastructure primarily as expenditure to viewing it as a long-term investment in economic productivity and public value. For investors, this means understanding municipal infrastructure not only in terms of the immediate construction project, but also in terms of the broader economic ecosystem it enables. A reliable electricity network support industrial activity. A well-managed water system support household, businesses, and agriculture. Efficient waste management contribute to a healthier and more attractive urban environments. Reliable roads and transport infrastructure connect people and businesses to markets, while digital infrastructure create new opportunities for innovation and more efficient municipal administration. Infrastructure, therefore, has a multiplier effect. But for that multiplier effect to be realized, infrastructure must be properly planned, financed, operated, and maintained. This is why the conversation about investment must include the entire infrastructure life cycle. We must consider not only the cost of construction, but also the cost of operating, maintenance, renewal, and eventual replacement. South Africa's infrastructure needs are significant, and the government alone cannot provide all the capital needed to close the infrastructure gap. We therefore need to mobilize additional resources for finance, including development finance, blended finance, public-private partnership, infrastructure bonds, institutional investment, and other appropriate financing mechanisms. The financing challenge is not simply to borrow money, it is also to structure an affordable value for money investment that combines grants, municipal revenues, development finance, and private capital in ways that do not impose unsustainable debt burdens on municipal balance sheets or compromise service affordability. We also recognize an important reality. Capital follows confidence. Investors need predictable regulation, credible financial information, transparent procurement, reliable revenue models, clear risk allocation, and capable project management. Investors need confidence that municipal institutions have the capacity to manage complex infrastructure projects and honor their commitments. This means that our objective cannot simply be to find money for projects. We must build investable municipalities that require strengthening municipal financial management, asset management, revenue systems, technical capability, project preparation, and governance. A technically sound project does not automatically become a bankable project. Bankability requires an enabling institutional environment in which investors can understand the risks, revenue model, regulatory framework, and the long-term obligations associated with the investment. This is where local government reform and infrastructure investment come together. Better institutions create better investment conditions and attract capital. Capital support infrastructure and economic growth. Economic growth strengthens the municipal revenue base. Stronger municipal revenues enable further investment. That is the vicious cycle we seek to build. We must also be frank about municipal financial sustainability, customer debt, non-revenue water, electricity losses, billing weaknesses, deferred maintenance, and growing municipal obligations all undermine the sustainability of trading services. The solution cannot simply be higher tariffs. Financial sustainability requires municipalities to understand the true cost of providing each service, improving billing and collection, reduce losses, protect infrastructure assets, and ensure that revenue generated from trading services is appropriately managed. Councils, communities, and investors need greater visibility of the cost, revenues, subsidies, losses, and investment requirements associated with these services. At the same time, our approach must remain socially responsible. Those who can afford to pay for services, they must do so. While households that genuinely cannot afford to pay must be properly identified and supported through municipal indigent programs. The objective is not commercialization for its own sake. The objective is financial sustainability in service of public value. Investment in infrastructure must also be matched by investment in institutional capability. We cannot build world-class infrastructure and then manage it through weak systems, inadequate asset registers, poor maintenance planning, or insufficient technical capacity. Professionalization is therefore central to our reform agenda. Municipalities need suitably qualified engineers, planners, financial specialists, procurement professionals, contract managers, asset managers, and data specialists who can manage increasingly complex infrastructure environment. Technology must also become central to this transformation. Digital billing, smart metering, asset management systems, predictive maintenance, and data analytics can help municipalities improve efficiency, reduce losses, and make better investment. The objective is to move from municipalities that react to infrastructure failure to municipalities that predict, prevent, and manage infrastructure risk. Our infrastructure investment must also contribute to spatial transformation. South Africa's cities and towns cannot be sustainable if economic opportunities remain concentrated in limited areas, while communities remain disconnected from jobs, markets, and services. Infrastructure must help connect people to opportunities. It must support township economies, rural economies, industrial areas, logistic corridors, tourism destination, and emerging economic centers. Reliable municipal services, serviced land, functioning roads, predictable development processes, and resilient infrastructure create the conditions for business to invest and for communities to participate in the economic activity. This is where infrastructure investment becomes more than an engineering exercise, but becomes an economic development strategy. Climate resilience is another important consideration. Climate change is infrastructure planning and municipal finances through flooding, drought, extreme heat, and other climate-related events. Resilient infrastructure is therefore not simply about protecting the environment. It is about protecting investment, municipal balance sheets, and economic activity. Where we invest in infrastructure today, we must ask whether it will remain fit for the purpose of decades to come. The scale of the challenge before us, therefore, demands partnership. The government has a critical role in creating the policy, regulatory, and institutional environment in which investment can take place. Investors and private sector bring capital, technology, innovation, and exercise. Development finance institutions help structure projects and manage risk. Professional institutions provide technical capability. Communities remain central stakeholders in determining whether infrastructure ultimately creates meaningful public value. Our approach, therefore, must be one of partnership rather than working in silos. But partnership must also be responsible. They must be transparent, protect the public interest, allocate risk appropriately, safeguard affordability and public assets, and be structured around measurable outcomes. Our responsibility as a government, therefore, is to create the conditions in which those opportunities can be responsibly developed and translated into sustainable infrastructure and economic value. Ultimately, all of these bring us back to one central objective: making every municipality work. A municipality works when infrastructure is reliable, finances are sustainable, officials are capable, councils exercise effective oversight, revenue is collected fairly, suppliers are paid, procurement delivers value for money, and communities, as well as business, can depend on the services they receive. For government, this is a constitutional responsibility. For communities, it is about dignity and quality of life. For businesses, it is about certainty and productivity. For investors, it is about confidence and long-term opportunity. These interests are not contradictory. They are deeply connected. A municipality that works is good for residents, good for business, good for investors, and ultimately good for South Africa's economic growth. This is why local government reform must be understood not simply as an internal government program, but as an integral part of South Africa's broader economic development and investment strategy. As I conclude, Program Director, let me return to the central theme of our discussion. Reimagining municipal trading services means recognizing that water, electricity, sanitation, waste management, and other municipal services are not simply functions to be administered. They are foundations upon which our economies, communities, and cities depend. Building financial sustainable cities means ensuring that municipalities can generate, manage, and protect the resources necessary to operate, maintain, and renew their infrastructure. Investing in infrastructure means recognizing that the right infrastructure, properly planned and sustainably financed, can unlock economic opportunity, attract investment, support business, create jobs, and transform communities. South Africa is therefore not simply looking for capital. We are looking for long-term partnership that combine capital, expertise, innovation, and institutional capacity to build infrastructure that works and lasts. We want municipalities that are financially resilient, professionally managed, technologically enabled, investment ready, and responsive to their communities. We want cities and towns where infrastructure is not constrained to growth, but a platform for growth. Let us therefore move from the dialogue to partnership, from projects to investment pipelines, and from infrastructure expenditure to long-term value creation. Let us collaborate across sectors, integrate planning with investment, and sustain the infrastructure, institutions, and partnership that will carry our municipalities into the future. Because ultimately, when municipalities work, the economies work. When infrastructure work, investment work. And where investment work, communities prosper. This is the future we must build together. Thank you very much, Program Director.
A big round of appreciation for those wise words. Minister has also become known as the one who coined the phrase, every municipality must work. I'm known for taking liberty, so I'm going to take the liberty as though this is a mandate from the minister that all in the room, all of us assembled here, are also tasked with the responsibility to familiarize ourselves with the white paper on local government, as this would aid all our efforts and ensure that we're all aligned with the vision of the country. Not a bad liberty to take, is it? Definitely not. In my native language, we say, umuntu ngumuntu ngabantu. In fact, that's in the Nguni languages, mutu ki mutu, kabatu. If you don't understand what I'm saying, this is the opportunity to tap the neighbor and ask, what did he just say? But loosely translated, a person is a person through others. I wish to extend this, ladies and gentlemen, to nations where we say, isizwe, sisizwe, ngezinye. A nation is a nation through others. It therefore is no surprise that our next speaker is from one of ezozizwe, ezizizwe, ngezinye, in particular to our relationship with South Africa. Our next speaker is tasked with a massive responsibility of overseeing Zimbabwe's local government and public works agenda, including municipal infrastructure, urban and rural development, and public works. He brings to this portfolio experience, immense experience in construction, housing and infrastructure development, including work in the public-private partnership housing projects. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to welcome to the podium the Minister of Local Government and Public Works of the Republic of Zimbabwe, Honorable Daniel Kharwe. I hope he'll be able to tell us in Shona and in Ndebele how we say umuntu ngumuntu ngabantu.
Thank you very much, our program director. I think I can say properly without. I was a humbled program director when you delivered the message from His Excellency, the former President of the Republic of South Africa, Thabo Mbeki, to my dear brother, the Minister responsible for cooperatives and traditional leadership. You may also want to know that His Excellency, the former President of the Republic of South Africa, is a Pan-Africanist. So the message was not directed to him, but the message was directed to all of us. So he must ensure that the message must reach us through him. Thank you very much. Allow me, therefore, to recognize the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure and his deputy, the present, the Minister of Cooperatives, Traditional Leadership, and many others, who is also the chairman of the SADC ministers responsible for disaster management and preparedness. Distinguished honorable ministers, your worships, our mayors here present, your excellencies, members of the diplomatic corps who may be here, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed my honor and privilege to join this high-level policy discussion on a subject that defines the future of urban Africa, on a subject that is very close to my heart, on a subject that takes Africa from where it is to where it ought to be on the global scale. Our cities cannot prosper while local authorities remain dependent on fiscal transfers. Our cities cannot prosper while we fold our hands as infrastructure deteriorates. Our cities cannot prosper whilst we wait for handouts from central government. Therefore, financial service resilience must be the goal, and that goal is achieved by reimagining municipal trading services. We must, as a matter of course, as a matter of principle, reimagine service delivery. When we invest in and modernize revenue generation infrastructure for water, for energy and electricity, solid waste management, urban logistics, and power distribution, we transform local government finances. Councils move from deficit to surplus. Services improve, and cities become active contributors to national economic growth through stronger on-source revenue. Local authorities must see a business sense in the way they conduct their business. They must look at themselves as businesses, not the private sector and local authorities. They must look at themselves as part of the private sector, whilst the private sector looks at itself as part of local government. The foundation of this transformation is therefore political and policy clarity. And in my beautiful country, Zimbabwe, a national directive issued by the President, His Excellency Dr. Emmerson Mnangagwa, in November 2023, mandated that local authorities must cease to be passive administrative bodies and must become active facilitators of local economic development and growth. That directive created the space for councils to enter into partnerships, adopt technology, and be measured against performance. The lesson for all of us is that sustainable infrastructure investment begins with a clear commitment that service delivery is not negotiable. Service delivery is not a by-the-way matter. Service delivery is what brings us together here. Public-private partnerships, therefore, have become the primary vehicle for closing our infrastructure gap. And in 2022, the city of Harare, which is our capital city, entered into a 30-year partnership to convert what is to be a dump site into an integrated environmental and energy hub. The facility now combines engineered landfills, safe waste integration, wastewater treatment, and large-scale sorting, and it is designed to convert municipal refuse into between 16 and 22 megawatts of electricity into the national grid. The system is supported by the door-to-door refuse collection and the clearance of all illegal dump sites across the beautiful city. The model is being replicated across Zimbabwe's other cities. This basically is converting waste into energy and waste into revenue and improving public health and meeting our zero waste target. This is what this program is doing. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, to address Harare's high non-revenue water losses of 40 to 60%, we commercialized water services through a private sector partnership focused on smart metering and accurate billing across the full value chain, from purification to conveyancing to water metering and billing. This commercial model is being rolled out to other cities and towns, anchored on technology for efficiency and revenue assurance. Harare has integrated prepaid water meters into geographical information systems database to align billing and detect any anomalies. The second capital city of Bulawayo is also using geographical information systems to track assets and improve revenue mapping, and other towns are conducting GIS audits to identify illegal structures and unbuilt connections. Regarding the city transport system, Harare deployed an artificial intelligence-powered smart traffic management system using smartphones and cameras in the CBD to optimize signals, enhance safety, and enable automated fines, thereby reducing cash leakages and improving compliance. The investment in technology will not endure without local governance reforms. Zimbabwe updated its legal framework to enable smart electricity, to enable smart water and traffic systems, to enforce performance. Government introduced statutory instruments and other legal instruments that set service delivery standards and penalties for failure, thereby creating accountability and beginning to restore public confidence. To reduce fiscal dependency, Zimbabwe has introduced updated public-private partnerships guidelines with the standardized processes, strict timelines, and 30% state equity to ensure delivery. We have also launched blended financing mechanisms using land in lieu of cash, supported by new valuation policies. Concurrently, major cities are advancing preparations to float municipal bonds on the domestic capital markets and the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange to raise direct funding for core infrastructure. But infrastructure must not relate to roads, never relate to water delivery, waste management. Infrastructure must also relate to our values and cultures as a people. What is the culture of Cape Town? What defines Cape Town, not only in terms of the infrastructure, but in terms of the culture of that city? What is it outside clean water and beautiful roads that can attract people into Cape Town? And these are the issues that we are looking at as Zimbabwe. And I'm sure we share that platform with my colleague, Minister Ye, my brother, to ensure that our cultures are cross-cutting, that what defines South Africa should be what defines Zimbabwe, and what defines Zimbabwe should be what defines Nigeria and Ghana and Namibia, because Africa is one. Ladies and gentlemen, regional collaboration is essential if we are to achieve scale. Our cities face common challenges in energy, common challenges in waste and mobility, common challenges in energy supply. Therefore, by harmonizing data standards, procurement approaches, and municipal finance instruments, we lower costs and attract investors. Zimbabwe stands ready to share lessons from the The Pomona Waste to Energy project I've just spoken about, from the geographical information systems-based revenue assurance, and from our municipal bond preparation processes. In return, we seek to learn from regional best practice in capital markets and credit enhancement. Through such cooperation, we can build a network of bankable African cities that fund their own developments and imperatives. Excellencies, distinguished ministers, financially sustainable cities are built on 3 pillars: assets that generate revenue, contracts that deliver performance, and governance that enforces accountability and transparency. Zimbabwe's experience demonstrates that when municipalities are treated as enterprises, they can deliver high-class services and drive local economic growth. Let this dialogue commit us to invest in infrastructure that pays for itself, to measure and enforce performance, and collaborate regionally so that our cities become the engines of Africa's prosperity. In turning to Zimbabwe, as I conclude, ladies and gentlemen, Zimbabwe has embarked on a very ambitious program being driven by the national vision, Vision 2030, of us aspiring to become an upper middle income economy by that year. And 2030 to us is not the destination. Vision 2030 is the beginning, and the beginning starts with reimagining our local authorities. What are we doing to ensure that our infrastructure speaks to volumes of population that are migrating from the rural communities to urban areas? We are also seized with a growing number of informal settlements. And those informal settlements are not only confined to Zimbabwe, but they are also here in South Africa. They are in every country in Africa. What are we doing as we upgrade our infrastructure in the already established local authorities? What are we doing for those informal settlements? They are economies on their own. Our local authorities are losing a lot of revenue because no revenue collection is being carried out in those informal settlements. No taxes are being paid to central government from those local authorities. But if we provide the services that we are now providing in already established cities, we will ensure that our local authorities will generate a lot of revenue, which will then support them to continue maintaining their services as we move forward. So Vision 2030 has seen Zimbabwe's economy grow at 7.2% as we speak. It is among the fastest growing economies in the region and amongst the fastest growing economies in Africa. Zimbabwe is driven by a highly educated population. Our population, our young people, I was joking with my colleague last year when he came to Zimbabwe, it was early this year actually, that if you move in the streets of Mbare and you find a group of youngsters walking, if you throw a stone, you are likely to hit out of 5, 3 university graduates. This is the level of literacy that Zimbabwe has reached. And these are the resources that we are saying as Zimbabwe, let's use those resources, not only to develop Zimbabwe, but to develop and participate in the growth of the countries that are around us. And South Africa, you agree with me, is the biggest beneficiary of the Zimbabwe's literacy levels. We are also the biggest beneficiary of goods and some services that are manufactured and produced from the Republic of South Africa. So the relationship between Zimbabwe and South Africa is seamless. We are one. We must ensure that we develop our economies, we develop SADC, we ensure that our cities match any other city in the world. This is the aspiration of Vision 2030. These are the aspirations, I'm sure, of our presidents. I know that my president was here a couple of days ago, and I'm told that a business delegation led by His Excellency, your President Ramaphosa, are coming to Zimbabwe to explore opportunities in the vast areas of mining, infrastructure, road network, many other energy. Zimbabwe is open for business, and you are all invited to come to Zimbabwe. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Minister. African solidarity is not just a vision, but it is a philosophy we should all live by. It goes without saying, ladies and gentlemen, that the interventions underway in Zimbabwe tell us that resources such as water, which are often viewed as constraints, could, with innovative financing schemes and creative thinking around these issues, they could actually end up becoming instruments of. It is unfortunate that we are pressed for time as we have to take the president's message at 12. I'm now going to quickly jump into the discussion itself, and I'll do so by inviting my esteemed panelists to make their way to the front. Starting off with the Chief Executive Officer of the Municipal Infrastructure Support Agent known as MISA. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a warm round of applause for Ms. Mapatane Tidimalo, affectionately known as Patty Kumo. She is followed by the Managing Director of the Water Business Unit at Zutari, Mr. Mpho Rampau. Mr. Rampau is joined by Mr. Alex Mabunda, who is the Group Executive Officer at Ntiyiso. Last but not least, we have Dr. Le Masangane, who is the Group Executive Programs and Preparation at the Development Bank of Southern Africa. As she makes our way, I had a brief chat with her, lest I get accused of being overly familiar by mentioning or by addressing her by her first name. There was a video that went viral where a billionaire from the continent was addressed by a young lady in the room, and she so happened to have addressed him by his first name, and he didn't take too kindly to that. So I think I do have permission. I have been given the permission to address my panelists by their first names. So if I do that, or when you hear me doing that, please do not confuse me for an ill-disciplined African child who does not shonipa. Ordinarily, colleagues, the responsibility to locate the panelists within the conversation obviously lies with the moderator. It is unfortunate we do not have that luxury as time is strictly against us. I will therefore I'm known for taking liberties. I'm going to take the liberty now for us to skip that part and get straight into the conversation so we can get as much as we possibly can. South Africa remains a democratic country, so I can't just take decisions unilaterally. I need to get your permission. Are we aligned? Are you comfortable with that? Are you, the most important people, comfortable with the arrangement of me jumping into the conversation? I see a lot of nods. So if you are going this way, I choose to ignore you. Let's go straight to MISA. Patty, before municipal infrastructure can drive economic growth, municipalities must have the institutional and technical capability to plan, deliver, and maintain. My first question to you, therefore, is South Africa has spent a considerable amount of resources supporting municipalities with engineers, project managers, and technical specialists. Yet many municipalities continue to experience infrastructure failure. What, in your view, what have we misunderstood about municipal capacity building?
A very good morning to you, moderator, and a very good morning to the ministers. And I've always wanted to say this. Let me rise on the protocol that has already been established. I hear a lot of people saying that lately. So this is not necessarily a misunderstanding, but it can be quantified as an element of misalignment with provisions of technical support and intervention, offering in line with the provisions of Section 154 of our Constitution and the implementation of technical strategies by municipalities. So imminent diagnosis points to municipal capabilities to plan, deliver and maintain infrastructure. So deployment of technical experts has not been complemented with building internal capacity. Hence, municipal performance would decline once the technical experts are withdrawn. And this is what we are seeing quite commonly, that most of the capacity support programs focus on deploying technical experts instead of building internal technical capacity. So some support packages focus on training individuals without addressing the institutional constraints, because municipalities need to prioritize capacity development instead of being passive recipients of the support. So instead of building capacity at a national and provincial level, with the expectation that it will translate into municipal performance, priority should be given to intentionally building capacity within the municipal space. Thank you.
Thank you, Mpho. I wish we had time to explore that further, but I need to, for the purposes of fairness, I need to ensure that at least we get to have a say from all the other panels as well. Mr. Mpho Rampau, who is the Managing Director for the Water Business Unit at Zutari. Mpho, let's take the conversation into one of the most important services required by any functioning economy, and that is water. A municipality may have land, it may have labor and investment opportunities are plenty. But of course, without secure water and sanitation systems, those systems that cannot be realized. Now, what are the key shifts required to move beyond viewing water and sanitation as just a mere basic municipal services, and position them as strategic economic infrastructure capable of creating economic value and supporting growth?
Yeah, that's it's a loaded gun. I'll try my best.
It's not an AK-47. We've gone the days of the struggle.
Yeah, so distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I think a lot has been said about making sure that we've got reliable quality services that we can maintain in order to drive economic growth. So in my view, I think we should stop treating municipal services, specifically water and sanitation, as consumption services. We need to use those as assets that can unlock economic growth. In my view, water security is ultimately an economic security. So when you plan a development, economic planning must include water as a basis for that. It shouldn't be something that comes afterwards. Special development should be part of that. And secondly, the second key shift that I see is we need to know that supplying water, it's not just about that, but it involves managing that service as well, whether it's on the water or the sanitation side. And in order to do that, we also need to just move beyond traditional ways that we've been doing and integrate the digital infrastructure that is required. Because if you don't know what you're producing, you cannot recover revenue that is so needed to be able to finance that infrastructure and maintain it. The third shift for me is investment ultimately should be planned around where you've actually sorted out where the water is going to come from. So you cannot go and plan an economic industrial zone or any economic activity without knowing where the water is going to come from. Otherwise, you're going to be left with an egg on your face. For me, I regard water actually as a force multiplier. Without water, no one can actually survive. We've seen that when we struggled with load shedding, not I'm advocating for that, we still survived. But try and stop water supply or interrupt that. The true colors of the nation actually comes out. So for me, without actually reliable water supply, nothing actually ever functions. Thanks.
Thank you. Definitely, water is this, as an old adage says, water is life. Mayor Jordan earlier on his address, he made reference to a couple of infrastructure projects that are on the run, that are active. I thought it important to bring that into this conversation as a means to also demonstrate that these aren't necessarily talk shops, but there is work that is happening parallel. I'm going to take this one to you, Mr. Alex Mabunda from DUSO. You so happen to have been one of the integral partners that worked on the Machabeni project. Could you just, for the purposes of the audience, just take us through briefly give us high level of what that project was and how it links into today's discussion?
Thank you and greetings to all the honorables. I'm also standing on the established protocol. Yes, that has become a cliche these days. So yes, I'm the Group Chief Executive Officer at the ISO Group, and we have had the privilege, Minister, of being appointed by ISA to develop a business case for the water challenges at Machabeng. So Machabeng local municipality runs around 1,700 kilometers of water infrastructure, much of which has passed its effective, date, as it were, by about 36%. So it's a 40-year asset that has outran its time by about 36%. And with that, we began to, as we currently are experiencing, have about 56% water loss. And that results in about 20 rands per kiloliter cost at a selling price of about 15 rands per kiloliter. And you can see that this is a loss-making business. So we came in, developed the business case, but also proposed a blended finance wherein a loan will, be provided to supplement what the BFI would fund against future transfers, as well as looking at hiving off the water asset into a standalone utility, which will then allow additional future investment into the asset. But also, Machabeng has also been using an old technology on asbestos and steel pipes, which we know they are health hazards, and that also necessitates the speed with which this infrastructure has to be replenished. And we're pleased that the work has now resulted in an 800 million rands investment, which obviously will be blended with a TBSA loan, and hopefully this asset will be replenished and people can get the service that they deserve.
Thank you, sir. It's always remarkable to see work in progress. A big round of applause for that. I will not tell the audience that of the 800 million that you raised, you were only paid 1.8 million and it didn't even come to your pocket. I'm not going to share those details, and that was a private conversation between the two of us, and I'm very big on confidentiality and keeping secrets, so no one will know. We now move on to Dr. Pindile Masangane, who is the Group Executive Programs and Preparation at the Development Bank of Southern Africa. Pindile, some of the municipalities with the greatest infrastructure needs also have the weakest balance sheets. Yet without infrastructure investment, those municipalities have very little prospect of attracting business, or even growing their economies for that matter, or even expanding their revenue bases. How do we break that cycle? How should development finance, public funding, and private capital work together to finance economically important infrastructure in places where the immediate commercial return may be limited?
Thank you, Lupi, for that. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, honorable ministers, all protocol observed. The Development Bank of Southern Africa, I'll ride on the example that has already been given on Machapeng, on the Machapeng Water Project. We actually support municipalities, Lupi, not just at the end of financing infrastructure, where you are concerned about. Will it have the necessary revenues? Will it make enough money to finance? We actually finance municipalities right from the planning stage, because we think that we believe that it's important that there is proper planning for this infrastructure. Earlier on, one of the speakers spoke about population growth, spoke about rapid urbanization as people come to cities to look for employment. There's also the challenge of climate change. So we assist municipalities to make sure that the infrastructure can withstand the rapid changes in our climate conditions. Once we've done that, we help the municipalities to prepare the infrastructure. A case has been made of how SIDSSA supported the Machapeng municipalities. We've got similar facilities, which actually are funded from our own resources as well as National Treasury. That's where you look at the business case of developing that infrastructure. Who's going to use it? How much would it cost? Can all the people that require that infrastructure afford it? And that's where, if it's necessary, then to make sure that you've got the viability support that you need. But you can only do that, and you can only make a case to the fiscus if you've got the project properly prepared and you've got the business case. It's on this basis that now you have the bankable feasibility study, and it's showing that not all the people in the area, in the municipality, can afford this. Importantly, though, to your question, it will also show the economic value of that infrastructure. What other economic activities that infrastructure can bring together or can crowd in? On that basis, once it is clearly articulated in the feasibility study, only then can National Treasury, which my fellow panelist has spoken to, speak to you in terms of that budget facility for infrastructure, commonly known as the BFI. Most municipalities will know it. So to your question, if there is a clearly laid out business case of what other economic activities that infrastructure will support in that municipality, National Treasury through the fiscus can provide additional financing support to bring that infrastructure to life. So you find that by the time the infrastructure is supported through such instruments, the gap left for loan financing, commercial banks financing, is quite narrowed down. So the key to your question lies in making sure that the business case is well articulated and well structured. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It is so unfortunate, and I feel that we've done a huge disservice to you as our esteemed panelists, but not me specifically. Time, that is. Time continues being the enemy. And unfortunately, we now have to wrap it up, as I have to hand over to Clement, who's going to connect us with the president. But my esteemed panelists, thank you very much. I sincerely hope that those who are in the room would find the time through the course of the day to interact with yourselves better. It is unfortunate that our session has to end so abruptly. But a big round of applause to our panelists. And I now hand over back to you, Clement.
Thank you very much, Lupumlo and the fellow panelists. Thank you to the Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Velenkosini Hlabisa. Also to the Minister in Zimbabwe, Daniel Garwe, the Minister of Local Government for Public Works in Zimbabwe. Thank you for helping us reimagine the metros and the cities as financially sustainable through infrastructure investment, because it is possible. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the kind of regional collaboration that this symposium aims to achieve. The opportunities for infrastructure investment are abound, and not only in this region, but the continent at large. So again, please use this symposium, the networking opportunities, to explore partnerships and investment opportunities in infrastructure. It's now time to hear from His Excellency, the President of the Republic of South Africa, the Honorable President Cyril Ramaphosa. I must also say, also known as Mr. Clockett. I mean, who taught the president that? I think we need to keep him away from these young ones. Who knows what else they're going to teach him. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome back on stage Minister Dean McPherson as we prepare to hear from the president.
I must admit, Clement, I consider myself to be fairly youngish, but I don't even know what this Clockett thing is. So when someone said Clockett, I looked at my watch. What was I supposed to do? Thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, I really do thank you for your patience and understanding. And while it's been slightly different this year, I think it's been a very valuable opening and morning session and some really good conversations that have started this morning and will continue into the afternoon. Mr. President, Your Excellency, the Deputy Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure, Mr. Sihle Zikalala, ministers present from across the African continent, South African ministers present, deputy ministers in attendance, members of the Executive Council that are here with us, the Executive Mayor of Cape Town in absentia, the Director General of the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure, Mr. Sifiso Ndakane, the Head of Infrastructure South Africa, Ms. Mametse Masemola, the Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Public Works and Infrastructure in Parliament, Ms. Carol Perry, as well as members of the Portfolio Committee present, senior government officials, our sponsors, again this morning, thank you so much. Our representatives, again from development finance institutions and multilateral organizations, our private sector partners, members of the media, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome the President of the Republic of South Africa, His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa, to the Sustainable Infrastructure Development Symposium, South Africa 2026. Mr. President, this year's symposium is focused on shaping the future of municipal infrastructure. It is at a municipal level that South Africans experience infrastructure most directly. As we heard this morning, whether it's through the water that they receive, the roads that they travel on, or the electricity that supports their small businesses, as well as the sanitation systems that we require to protect public health. Our discussions this morning, and indeed over the last 2 days, have reinforced a central message that South Africa does not lack infrastructure ambition or ideas, or even money, to be perfectly honest. Our challenge is to prepare those projects, mobilize finance, and move with greater urgency from planning to procurement, to construction, and to delivery. SIDSSA brings together government, municipalities, partners from across the continent, investors, financiers, and technical partners to help achieve precisely that. As you know, Mr. President, South Africa has committed more than 1 trillion rand to public infrastructure over the next 3 years, and is a rolling amount. Our collective responsibility is to ensure that the commitment produces active construction sites, functional infrastructure, economic growth, and better services for our communities. Mr. President, as the chairperson of the Presidential Infrastructure Coordinating Council, you lead the national structure responsible for coordinating the National Infrastructure Plan, prioritizing strategic integrated projects, and help move obstacles to facilitate infrastructure investment. Through the PICC, national, provincial, and local government are being brought together around a common program, and that is to strengthen Infrastructure South Africa, improve municipal bulk infrastructure, unlock new sources of finance, and accelerate regulatory approvals. Mr. President, your leadership has placed infrastructure at the center of South Africa's development and economic agenda. We look forward to your reflections on the progress made, the work still required, and the next phase of our national infrastructure program. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct honor this year to invite the President of the Republic of South Africa, His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa, to deliver the keynote address to SIDSSA 2026. And as they would say in the movies, it's over to you, Mr. President.
Well. A Program Director, Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure, Minister Dean McPherson, Ministers and Deputy Ministers present from South Africa, and indeed our beloved continent, premiers of our country in various provinces, mayors, head of Infrastructure South Africa, members of the Diplomatic Corps, leaders of business and labor, representatives, development finance institutions, and multilateral organizations, and infrastructure professionals, as well as practitioners, distinguished guests, and ladies and gentlemen. I am sorry that I am not able to be present physically amongst you, something that I regret deeply because I've always felt the real privilege of being amongst you as you hold the symposium. So forgive me for not being there. But we obviously have to say thank you to the wonders of technology that we are able to, on a live basis, interact with each other and even see each other. So I do know that seeing my pretty face, exactly where you are. And I may not be able to see all of your pretty faces, but those I see, like the one I saw recently of the minister, a pretty bright face indeed. So technology enables us to interact. We meet just a week after the leaders of the Southern African Development Community held their 46th Ordinary SADC Summit in eThekwini. At the center of discussion at that summit was the work we must collectively undertake as the 16 countries in our region to further integrate the economies of our region. Infrastructure is fundamental to the integration of our Southern African region and the African continent indeed. We need roads, bridges, rail lines, power lines, data cables, gas pipelines, and fuel pipelines that cross our region, our continent. We're beginning to envisage building pipelines, pipelines that could run for 7, 8, 10,000 kilometers. So our ambitions are at a high level. In doing all this, we know that we must mines to factories and farms to markets. We must link gas fields to industrial plants, wind farms to homes, businesses. We must also link mobile phones to data centers. We must link businesses to customers. It is for this reason that South Africa has placed infrastructure investment at the center of our drive for inclusive growth and job creation. In fact, as we are involved in reform process, massive structural reform process, we're also reforming the way infrastructure is delivered, how it is financed, how it is conceptualized, and how it is made bankable. So infrastructure, therefore, is very much part of our reform agenda. We know that our ability to grow economy of our country depends on whether we can secure reliable energy, sufficient water, efficient ports and railways, functioning roads, digital connectivity, and cities and towns that work. Infrastructure, therefore, and ultimately affects the daily lives of South Africa. It determines whether clean water, whether a community has functioning sanitation, whether a learner has a safe and sustainable school to go to, whether a commuter can travel safely and affordably, and whether a business can rely on the basic services it needs to operate. So when we embark on the infrastructure investment drive, we are essentially clear that South Africa needs to change fundamentally, particularly the way in which infrastructure is planned, it's prepared, it's financed, and it's delivered. We did recognize that our infrastructure system was too fragmented, and that's what gave rise to the reform process around it, the delivery of infrastructure. The result was a delay, escalating costs, and too many instances, projects that did not proceed at all. We have strengthened coordination through Infrastructure Development Act and the work of Infrastructure South Africa in preparing and advancing country strategic infrastructure pipeline. We expect Infrastructure South Africa to ensure that our infrastructure pipeline is progressing, that projects are properly planned, and that the funding is secured, and that procurement takes place when it is supposed to. Now, the economic imperative for doing this is so clear. South Africa's level of investment remains far below what is required to achieve faster and more sustainable economic growth. The gross fixed capital formation, a country which measures investment in productive assets such as infrastructure, machinery, equipment, and productive capacity, stood at around 12% in 2025. This is less than half of the 30% investment level envisaged in the National Development Plan for 2030. Now, these figures should concern us. In fact, they should alarm us, and they should motivate us at the same time to work with greater urgency and diligence to build the infrastructure our country needs. Now, as we meet at this 6th Sustainable Infrastructure Development Symposium, we can say with confidence that we are moving ahead at a greater pace. The estimated capital value of portfolio of our strategic and integrated projects has grown from approximately 340 billion rand 2020 to more than 1.67 trillion rand. That is a phenomenal growth. There are 195 public, private-led infrastructure projects across priority sectors in the current portfolio. over the last several years, 32 projects with an estimated value of approximately 48 billion have been completed. At present, 55 projects with an estimated value of more than 7 billion rand are in construction. Now, what does this tell us? It tells us that the pipeline is becoming more mature, but it also tells us where our attention must now be concentrated. We must focus on conversion. We need to convert plans into prepared projects, convert prepared projects into investments, and convert investment into construction. Most importantly, we need to convert construction into infrastructure that supports economic activity and improves the lives of our people. The role of Infrastructure SA is vital to do this. Drawing its mandate from the Infrastructure Development Act, Infrastructure SA plays a critical role in coordinating and facilitating strategic integrated projects across government. It identifies blockages and brings the relevant institution together to resolve them. One of the most important lessons we have learned is that South Africa does not suffer from a shortage of infrastructure proposals. Our constraint is that too many of these projects are not adequately prepared. There is an important difference between a project that is needed and a project that is ready. Through Infrastructure SA, 600 million rand project preparation facility, 26 projects have received and are receiving project development support. This kind of support is particularly important as we shift our focus towards municipal infrastructure delivery. Municipal infrastructure is not only where the effectiveness of the state is most directly felt and tested. It is the foundation of inclusive economic growth. It cannot function without reliable municipal infrastructure. Children cannot be schooled, workers cannot get to work, and communities cannot be developed. That is why we have to address municipal infrastructure differently. Providing another grant without addressing the underlying capability of the institution is just not sufficient. Building a new asset without making provision for the way it will operate and also its maintenance going forward is not sustainable. So we should not just be dumping projects on our people and walking away. Developing long lists of projects without preparing them properly does not constitute an infrastructure pipeline. The approach we are developing places project preparation, institutional capability, financing, and asset management together. This work is beginning to bear fruit. For example, Infrastructure SA just spent about 1.8 million to prepare and package a project for the Machabeng local municipality to replace over 1,700 kilometers of water pipes. That relatively modest investment in preparation helped to unlock an 800 million rand debt financing facility from the Development Bank of South Africa. Now, through the Adopt a Municipality pilot program, Infrastructure South Africa is preparing and packaging projects to unlock 7 billion of the investment. The program is focusing on municipal trading services such as water and sanitation, electricity and energy and waste management. One of the important reforms we have pursued in recent years is to provide greater certainty and visibility around the country's infrastructure pipeline. Today, we are releasing the third edition of the construction book. This showcases projects worth more than 350 billion rand, spanning sectors such as water, and sanitation, transport and logistics, energy and electricity, and municipal infrastructure. Now, the construction book provides the market with a very clear view of funded and investment-ready infrastructure projects that are expected to enter procurement over the next 12 to 18 months. Now, this edition contains over 170 projects with an estimated value of 264 billion rand. Now, to ensure that these projects move from the page on the ground, we will now publish quarterly performance reports on the construction book. Now, as South Africa, we have situated our infrastructure ambitions within the wider context of regional and continental integration. I understand that the third Leaders Forum held yesterday gave particular attention to the infrastructure required to better connect our economies and markets. Now, this aligns very well with the discussions we held last week at the SADC summit. We know that physical infrastructure alone will not deliver integration. We must continue to work in a harmonious manner in terms of our policies, our regulations, and our standards and institutional arrangements that enable infrastructure systems to operate effectively across national boundaries. That is why we are particularly encouraged by the participation of leaders, of investors, of financiers, and technical experts from across our continent. None of this work can be undertaken by government acting alone. The scale and complexity of infrastructure development demands partnership across the state, with the private sector, and with the development finance institutions and commercial lenders, and indeed with various other social formations. It requires strong cooperation between local, provincial, and local government. It also requires a capable state-owned entity or entities, as well as implementing agencies. But it also needs, unavoidably, engineers, planners, quantity surveyors, construction companies, as well as other infrastructure professionals. But it also requires universities and training institutions that develop the skills our country needs, as well as international and development partners who bring experience, expertise, as well as capital. So this symposium is important because it does bring together those different partners together around a common purpose to improve the way we plan, the way we finance, and ultimately the way we deliver infrastructure. Now, the task before us is substantial, but so too is the opportunity. If we continue to improve the quality of project preparation and strengthen the institutions responsible for delivery, we can significantly increase the pace and the scale of infrastructure investment. I hold the view that if we create greater certainty for investors and build enduring partnerships across government, business, society, which should include labor, we can create opportunities for all our people. So I would suggest that we ensure that we build and serve our nation, our region, and our continent, not only for today, but for tomorrow, but for many, many generations to come. Every generation is at the end measured but by what it has built and by what it has left behind. We are almost regaled by looking at a unique responsibility, not only for building for today's purposes, but also for building for tomorrow and into posterity. Not so much that we should be remembered for having done so. It is much more about how we build nations, how we even utilize those resources we have to advance the interests of people as a whole. This is a beautiful challenge we have. Let us proceed to make sure that we do deliver on that challenge. So thank you very much, particularly for allowing me to address you offline, online, and not offshore, but far away from where you are. So thank you very much. I regret once again for not being there with you, but thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And I can confirm that, judging by the concentration levels in this room, and I looked at the faces of everyone here, Mr. President, I can say with no shadow of doubt that everyone here was quite mesmerized by your pretty face. So it's worked. Mr. President, we announced earlier that we have the top 8 infrastructure priorities for preparation for the 2026-2027 financial year. This is a pipeline of projects that will receive project prep and support from Infrastructure South Africa. These are projects that are selected from the bid window 2 on project preparation, where Infrastructure South Africa called on the submission of projects that have the potential to unlock significant economic opportunities. So ladies and gentlemen, please let's fix our eyes on our screens to watch a video that spotlights some strategic integrated projects and announces the top 8 priority projects.
Infrastructure is the foundation of communities, economies, and opportunity. Closing South Africa's infrastructure investment gap requires more than funding. It requires projects that are well prepared, coordinated, and ready for investment. This showcase features 5 projects that demonstrate SIDSSA's role in strengthening South Africa's infrastructure pipeline. The University of Limpopo Student Accommodation Project forms part of the Student Housing Infrastructure Program and is a gazetted strategic integrated project supported by Infrastructure South Africa. With a capital value of approximately 1.5 billion rand, the project will deliver 4,500 student beds.
The project started in 2024, and then the first paid on the ground was May 2024. And then the project is split into 3 phases. Each phase consists of 2 villages. So we've completed the first 2 villages, which is phase 1. Phase 2 will be completed end of August, which is the other 2 villages. And then we'll be left with phase 3, which is the last 2 villages. And then that is planned to be finished in December this year.
Through coordinated oversight and implementation support, Infrastructure South Africa is helping accelerate the delivery of critical student infrastructure and strengthen South Africa's social infrastructure pipeline. Reliable water infrastructure strengthens economic growth, industrial development, and sustainable communities. The refurbishment and upgrade of the Olifantspoort and Ebenezer water supply schemes is a gazetted strategic integrated project supported by Infrastructure South Africa.
The project came about as a method to alleviate a water challenge within the Polokwane city and also the Capricorn District Municipality, where there were severe shortages of water supply, mainly due to a high demand than the available supply. The infrastructure dates back to the 1970s and later into the 1980s, where some of the pumps were completely beyond repair. And also there were issues related to water losses. So the water's challenges were so severe that in 2013, the municipality made a moratorium on new development where they could not allow new development to take place within the city until the issues are addressed.
With a capital value of approximately 23.2 billion rand, the project will rehabilitate aging infrastructure, improve water security, and increase bulk water supply across Limpopo.
The schemes Olifants and Ebenezer, and particularly Olifantspoort, it's the only surface water source to the city of Polokwane and Capricorn. These 2 schemes are currently supplying 70% of water to the city of Polokwane.
The upgraded schemes will increase treatment capacity to approximately 270 megaliters per day at Olifantspoort and 56 megaliters per day at Ebenezer, helping meet growing regional demand.
We currently implemented a refurbishment project, but we are still aiming to do an upgrade portion of the project, which is aimed at increasing supply to both municipalities. Our aim is that by the year 2030 or 2031, we will be able to supply the city up to the required demand and also up to the demand for 20 the capacity. In 2022, under the direction of the Director